This morning our interview was with Elmer Heinley. Elmer's been a lifelong citizen of Whitley County, and Elmer on April 9th will turn 101 years old. So he has a lot of information, a lot of history he can share with us. So we're going to turn it over to Elmer and let him share with us what he'd like for us to know about the history of Whitley County.
Okay, I'm Elmer Heinley. My grandparents came from Germany, and in the early part of the 1800s came through Columbia City when Main Street was a mud street. Went out 3.5 miles west of Columbia City and settled in to what became Hell's Half Acre. And I was born in Columbia City in 1915. My dad was a traveling salesman and sold farmland in 3 states surrounding Indiana and including Indiana. And then they moved from Columbia City out 3.5 miles west of Columbia City, which turned out to be Hell's Half Acre. Now, Hell's Half Acre was sliced off. It used to be Helm's Half Acre, and it was named that because Howard Helms deserted the army, and his mother taught school at the Hell's Half Acre Schoolhouse, which is still on Wolf Road, a half a mile north of the Dow Road. She taught school there, and it's now a house, and people live there. And my folks then moved out to Hell's Half Acre, and Dad bought 40 acres of land, and he lived there several years. And then my Lem Dorio, better than 100 years ago, in the 1800s, bought this farm where I live from the federal government for a few dollars, and built the house and built the barn in 1888. And he was my grandfather, and he Lem Dorio, then, as he bought it from the government, his son married my mother's sister, and therefore I became involved in this farm through my dad buying it in 1917, and I moved here in 1917, which is about 98 years ago, and I've lived there ever since.
Elmer, look at the camera here.
Okay.
So we can see it. There.
Okay.
That's it. There you go.
Ever since. And farming has changed tremendously in the last 100 years. Now, the first thing I remember as I grew up, after I was born in 1915, was the 1920s. Now, the 1920s, the thing that I remember most was not farming, it was the Ku Klux Klan. The Ku Klux Klan was a very active group of people in Whitley County. My dad was a Ku Kluxer, and that was a great organization in its first days. It took care of the orphans, the widows, and anyone that needed help, and they were well looked up to. My dad had a meeting of the Ku Klux Klan in my barn. I can remember at that time there were a lot of white coated people with hoods on, and they had made 3 crosses in my shed and wrapped them with burlap sacks and put kerosene on the sacks, set the 3 crosses out in the field, and the time that they had the meeting in our barn. After it was over, about 10 o'clock, they went out and burnt the 3 crosses. That was very prevalent. They did the same thing on the where Franks had their greenhouse. They did the same thing a little later than that. And then they didn't become a bad organization until they got into the Negro situation in the South. Then they went downhill. So that's what I remember in the 20s. And then we went into the 30s, and around just a little bit after 29, we went into the worst depression that we've ever had. And the only thing that we had over other people was we had plenty to eat on the farm, and livestock didn't bring any price at all. Roosevelt then became president in the 30s, and he bought up a whole thousands of hogs and had them killed and disposed of to raise the price of hogs from 2 cents a pound on up. And then when we had at our place, we had dairy cattle, we had hogs, we had chickens on 40 acres of land that we bought from my granddad when he retired and moved to town. So this farm has been in the family since the 1800s. And then we go from the 20s to where went into the 30s, and we ran into the Great Depression. Now my dad had 40 acres of land, and he had first he had a bunch of Jersey cows. And that was because we separated the milk, and when we milked it, and give the skim milk to the hogs, kept the cream, put it in the basement in the cooler that we built down there with ice, and churned the butter, and made butter. And then when I got out of high school and got to running around and exploring the country, Dad gave me the buttermilk to deliver in town. So I delivered buttermilk in town with my new yellow roadster that he got me in 33, or 36 it was 36. And I delivered milk for 25 cents a quart, buttermilk for 25 cents a quart, or $1 a gallon. And I did that every week for quite a few years. And I had more money when I was in senior in high school than most anybody else. And that's where I was able to keep my yellow roadster going. And then we went on up until very few people had tractors until 29. S.J. Peabody here had got a Fordson tractor, and that's the first tractor I ever saw work on the field right over north of where we're sitting now. And that was a steel wheel Fordson tractor. That's the first tractor I saw. Then in 38, they put rubber tires on tractors. And my dad was very set against tractors. If you owned a tractor, you was going to lose your farm. You had a farm with horses. So I got married in 38, and it cost me $1,500 to buy all the equipment to farm 40 acres of land, 6 head of horses, a grain reel, 2-row corn planter, and a 7-foot disc and 7-foot harrow. And then I went from, in 1940, then I bought a B tractor, two 12-inch plows, and all the equipment that would go behind it for it was a little better than $1,500, which today is very cheap, because I finally ended up farming 250 acres. I farmed the Frank's farm, the Bechtel farm. After Bechtel's wife died, she was a sister to my dad, and he wanted us to own the Bechtel farm, which is still over there. And I farmed down around 250 acres of land with a B tractor and all the equipment, which was a great, a lot better than 6 heads of horses. Now, when we farmed with horses, and I was a young man, we got up at 10 minutes to 4, went out and curried the horses and put harness on them, milked the cows, come back and ate breakfast, and about 7 o'clock we got up at 10 minutes to 4 every morning, 7 days a week. And then we went out and farmed all day and come back in and milked those cows and put all the live horses away, and we went to bed very tired. Now, the first time that I ever heard a radio or saw a radio was at this, where Katie lives now, and 1925 I heard the first radio. And so I went, and then when we moved here in 1915, there was 2 telephone offices in Columbia City. My granddad Barniel had 2 of the telephones hanging on the north wall of the dining room. They were battery operated, and your telephone rang. It was either 2 shorts, 2 longs, 4 shorts and a long, or so on and so forth. And whenever a certain lady down here west, her telephone rang, Dad had to run and listen to the telephone to hear the gossip in the community. And then in order to, so that he could listen to the gossip, he put a switch on the telephone so that he could shut the transmitter off, and we didn't have to be quiet, and he could still listen to all the gossip in the neighborhood. And that's just a matter of the way we lived in those days. And then we got married, and when I got married in 38, we milked 23 cows by hand. And that was 7 days a week, and we still separated the milk and put the cream in a big churn down in the basement, and we turned that churn until that cream turned into butter and buttermilk, and we sold the butter up to Yancey's Grocery, and I delivered the buttermilk to $1 a gallon or 25 cents a quart to the restaurants, Rhodes Pool Room, people in town, and that was my money while I was before I was married and after I was married for some time. Then we quit churning and sold the milk to a Warsaw firm, and the water tank is still buried in the ground at the wind pump, where we pump the water from the wind pump into that tank and cool the milk there and sold the milk. So as time went on then, we sold the cows and went to purely farming by the acres. And we raised corn, wheat, and in years when we had horses, we raised oats. We fed oats to the horses as grain. We ground oats for hog feed. We ground oats for chicken feed. It was a bone builder. And then, as time went on, soybeans came in, and in 1952, I bought a John Deere combine, which I just sold not too long ago. It was an 8-foot combine, tractor pulled, to combine the beans, and so before I had the combine, I got a 1-row corn picker with a side elevator on, and I picked the corn. Dad drove the horse in the wagon, and he said that was the best thing I ever did. We didn't have to shuck corn by hand anymore. And in the 20s, we had open pollinated corn. We saved the seed corn, the big ears, when we shucked it and put them in a sack, and then shelled them and tested them to see if they would grow, and then we put them in the sheller and shelled them and used them for seed corn. Then in the late 30s, 40s, 40s, hybrid corn came in, and it was quite a great idea. Hybrid corn didn't go down. That is, the stalks didn't fall down where the other ones did. And when you shucked them by hand, you had to lean over all the time, pick that up off the ground, which was quite a artist's thing to do. And so hybrid corn, and then it also produced more corn per acre than the open pollinated corn did. So then Helen and I lived where we live. I've lived there now 98 years. And as I said, Lem Dorio bought it from the government. His son married my mother's sister, and then my granddad, her father, my mother's father, bought the farm from Lem Dorio when he retired and moved to Columbus City. And then when I was born and went to Hell's Half Acre, when Grandpa retired, my dad bought the farm where I live now. And so that's the history of the farm and how farming was. And farming changed tremendously. As I said, I spent $1,500 to get all the equipment to farm. Now, you'll have to be a millionaire to be a farmer, to buy the equipment just to do the work that it takes to make a few dollars. And that's how agriculture has changed in the last 100 years.
Elmer, tell us a little bit about where you went to school. Where did you start school?
Okay.
Did you go to a one-room school, or tell
I-
us about your history?
Okay. My school was over here, just across, just east of, or south of here, at Walnut Corners, and that was a country school. Dad did not want me to go to a country school, or my sister, either one. So he got a hold of the trustee and had him pay transfers to Columbus City School. He paid, I forget how much a year the trustee did to get us to school, but my dad had to provide the transportation for us to get to school. So Dad said, I will do that. So he fixed it so we could walk to school. He bought me a new pair of shoes and told me to go to school. And every morning and night that the weather was fit, we walked to and from school, Columbus City High School, or West Ward School. Then we went to the high school, and I, in the meantime, as I grew up and got married and graduated from high school, the community, we had problems. Whenever a building caught on fire, it burned down, and all you could do was save the next building or the buildings from the original fire. So I and a few other people in 1950 got together and formed the Columbia Township Fire Department. And in 1951, I was made chief of that department, and I became chief for 20 years. And then we, it was, the fire department changed tremendously from the time we first started. All you needed to do is learn how to squirt water, and then afterwards we had to have training, and the best thing was when we had made a mist out of the fire hose, and it didn't take as much water, and it took the oxygen away from the fire, and they put it out quick. That was the first great improvement we made in the fire department. Then they asked me whether I wouldn't build the planning commission for Columbus City. And I held a meeting to see if we wanted a planning commission, and they called me a communist because I was telling them what to do with their property. And I formed the planning commission in Columbus City, and I set it up as it is today, and I was in that for about 10, 11 years. I ran that, and I was Republican treasurer for the Republican Party in Whitley County for 11 years, and every time anybody wanted anything in Whitley County, Bob Gates would call me and say, have they given anything to the party? I had to keep a record of all the contributions in the Republican Party. And so, and then along came they need a new high school in Columbus City. So they asked me if I wouldn't head the committee that would build the school. So I headed the committee that built the present Columbus City High School, and that was quite a ordeal. I had to decide whether they was going to have bleachers in the auditorium, and I did, and a lot of things about the schoolhouse. And then as time went on, as my sister said, I had my nose in everybody's business. And after 11 years, I just gave up all those things, and Helen and I just farmed, and we got a tractor in 1940, as I said, B tractor, and it made a great difference in the way I farmed. I farmed 250 acres. That was a lot of land in that time. Now 3,000 acres is about the minimum. So that's the way agriculture has changed today.
Well, tell us about your first automobile, Elmer. You remember what your first automobile, what kind it was, and how much you paid for
My
it?
dad, when I was a senior in high school, my dad bought me a yellow Chevrolet Roadster, and it was a beautiful car, big chrome lights on the headlights, chrome radiator, real bright yellow, and Pete Rowell and I ran around together, and he had a car, Chevy, just like it, same, just like. And when we went to town and drove up and downtown, nobody could tell which one of us was which. And one Saturday night, I drove into town, and the Cocky Brand was a policeman standing on the corner down there where Flock's store used to be, and he waved me down. He says, "I thought I told you to get out of town." "You didn't tell me to get out of town. I just came to town." So he chased Pete Rowell out of town, and he was going to try to chase me out of town. And I didn't go out of town. And so I had that yellow Roadster for a couple of years, and I traded it off then on a Ford Coupe. And I had that then for several years. And when Helen and I got married, I got a four-door automobile. So what else?
Well, how much did your dad pay for that first car? You remember?
The first car?
Yeah, that first car. How much did you pay for it?
$360. $360.
Yeah. Right. What about electricity? You remember when electricity?
Oh, yeah.
When you got electricity?
Well-
And how did that change the farming and the way you lived?
Okay. See, when I moved there, or when we moved there, we had electricity in 1915. My grandfather had the Delco light plant. That house was all, and barn was all electrified. And when we moved there, we had to put in a new, we had a summer kitchen out just at the edge of the house, and we had a Delco light plant in there, and there's a whole row of batteries in there that had to be charged so that we could have electricity in the house. And those batteries got bad, and Dad bought a brand new set of batteries, and he didn't have them very long. The lay went bad. The guy that sold it to him screwed him on the battery deal. Dad got mad and sold the Delco light plant, and we went to the Aladdin lamps. That was a kerosene lamp with real bright light, which was better than the old kerosene lamp. Went to that. Then Roosevelt came in, and we had the REMCs, and they came out to the country, and they came up this road to the first house, and they didn't go any farther than that house, and we sat there without electricity for a long time. And so then as time went on, they came on down to, see, Jack Peabody had his own electricity here for years. He he put his own line from Columbia City out along the ditch and come in here, and he had electricity and we didn't have electricity. And so they didn't come down any farther than this house. Then they came down, it was in I think it was 1942, Helen and Sandra was back in the woods picking berries, and they come in and put the line up the house and put the transformer on and hooked into our Delco light wires, and Helen and Sandra run all the way up the house to turn the lights on. And that's and then we've had.
What year was that when you turned the lights on?
1942.
42.
Yeah, and that's was one of the greatest achievements that we had. So.
How did it change the farming? How did electricity change the way you farm?
Well, I don't know. It didn't change farming a whole lot because we still, I've still farmed with the bee tractor and that equipment, and that's it. Just we had see in 1929, my dad put a pressure pump in, a wind pump, and he remodeled the house, put the front porch as it is, put a bathroom in, bathroom in one of the bedrooms where I sleep now, shower, and then he put one stool in the kitchen, and they pumped we had a 250-gallon water tank, pressure tank in the basement that furnished water for the stools and the bathtub, and we heated the water for the bathtub by putting pipes in the furnace with a big tank at the side of the furnace with water on, and we had hot water and bath water and stool water, and that was in 1929. And after that, then things changed. Electricity was just the RMC was a great thing. President Roosevelt fostered that, and it was a great thing for the government, for the country. That's.
So you remember when you got indoor plumbing then? That was what?
Got what?
You remember when you got your new first bathroom? That was.
Oh yeah, 1929.
Yeah.
Yeah, and before that we had a toilet out in the orchard, and that was then. Oh yeah, then during the Depression in the 30s, President Roosevelt had hired people that didn't have work to build the Roosevelt toilets out in the outdoors, so people had toilets that didn't have toilets outdoors. But we didn't need one. We had our modern flush toilets, because and it was just altogether different way of life. We modernized this place a little bit ahead of some of the rest of the farm.
So what changes have you seen here that had the biggest impact on Whitley County? What changes in your lifetime had the most impact on?
Okay, I think the computer has done more to change the way we do things than anything else, and where it will end up, I have no idea. See, today computers run the tractors. Mike's sprayer's got a computer on it, and it turns, his boom's so big that he turns around and comes within 2 inches of where he came down the field to go back, and guides it from the satellite in the sky. And that has changed farming tremendously. So, and the computer is, it's not only, I think the computer will make a whole lot of more difference in the years to come.
Do you have a computer, Elmer?
Nope, I started with a pencil and I graduated with a pen and I quit.
Looking back, what would you consider the best years of your life here in Whitley County?
Well, Helen and I had a great life together. She was a farmer's daughter. She understood agriculture, and she didn't object to all the things that I did. Sometimes I was 3 meetings in one night, and I was going a lot of time, but she thought that she enjoyed the different things that I did for the community, and we had a great life together. She sometimes, when I was doing something, I worked for the greenhouse for some years. I hauled flowers to Chicago and delivered them in Chicago and 3 states, Ohio, Indiana, and Michigan. And then when I was doing that way, she would work the ground, and when I come home at night, then I would plant corn. And she was Helen was just part of the family farm. She understood what it took to farm.
All right, is there anything else you'd like to share with us before we close our interview, Elmer?
Well, it's I tell you, as I grew older and over 100 years old, the thing that has kept me going, and I say this seriously, is Cops Farm Supply coming down and getting me at 7 o'clock in the morning and bring me down here, and we sat around this table and we gain knowledge. And some of it's good, some of it's bad. But that's what has happened. And cops, Mike and Cheryl have been a part of my life for a long time. And Katie has been very good to pick me up in the morning at 7 o'clock. And all these people around this table talking and bringing in different information, in all seriousness, at my age, keeps your mind active as long as you keep your mouth shut. And it's worked real well, and I hope it continues for years to come.
Very good. Well, why don't you tell us a little bit about your club here? Did we scan this a little bit? What's the name of this club, Elmer?
Well, for years it was called the Liars Club. So I got it in my head that wasn't a very nice thing to be sitting around the Liars Club. So I got Cheryl to bake a cake, and it said on a table of knowledge. We put it here in the center of the table, and we had a dedication that dedicates this table as a table of knowledge, and it has worked quite well. Sometimes we have as high as 13 people here on Saturday morning. And then ordinarily We have anywhere from 3 to 4 during the week. Harold and Dave Kaiser, he isn't here this morning. Oh, is he? Oh, Dave, where are you, Dave? Oh, I didn't see you. Dave Kaiser and Harold and I are here almost every day of the week, and and we usually, what's nice about it, Mike is so great about furnishing us coffee every morning, and then for here the last 2-3 mornings we've had cake, and we have cookies, and we have coffee, and we go till about 9 o'clock, and then we disperse every morning.
Well, tell us a little bit about that sign there on your chair, Elmer, the Sagamore of the Bull Base. Tell us about that.
Okay. I was active in public politics at the state level and the county level. I was chairman I was treasurer of the Republican Party for 11 years of the county, and then Harold and I, we told the Lugar and Dan Coates and Sowers not to do anything that would hurt agriculture, because if this country had to depend on any other country for food, we were in trouble. And that's what, didn't we, Harold? We did that. And we went to see Lugar the first year that he was elected, and Harold and I got over Washington, D.C. in an airplane, and they hit an air pocket, and the airplane dropped 750 feet, and we really were scared and made us about sick. And then coming home, when we got in the airplane, we got in another airplane, and I was sitting there beside of Harold, and the pilot was reading a book up there in the cockpit. Harold says, "He's learning how to drive this airplane." and doggone him, he started out in only one motor. And then when he got to the end of the runway, he turned the other on.
Well, thank you very much, Elmer. We appreciate you taking the time today to tell us about a lot of history here. We got a lot of information there in the last few minutes. And we appreciate you taking the time, and we appreciate everybody here from the club that you come to every morning, and we thank you for.
Well, it's been my pleasure. I've had a great life. I was president of the Whitley County Farm Bureau and president of Columbus City Rotary Club, fire chief for 20 years, and Harold and I, we advised Dan Quayle and Dan Sowers on how to run the government for agriculture, didn't we, Harold?
Oh, yeah. I believed every word of it.
Yeah. And so we've been very active in the community, both of us.
You remember the time that he was reading that? We was sitting in Cleveland, Ohio, and the pilot got a book out. He said, "What's he doing?" I said, "We're trying to learn how to fly this plane."
Yeah? Yeah.
And we took off.
Yep.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Elmer. I appreciate what you've done, and thank you for taking the time to share with us.
Okay.